You're 35 years old, you've got a decent job, maybe you make $65,000 a year. You're not broke, but here's what keeps you up at night. You genuinely have no idea where your money goes. Get paid, bills come out, you spend on things you don't really remember buying, and by the time you get to the next paycheck, you're somehow just fine. But you're not building anything. You're not moving forward. And the worst part, you look at people who are wealthy, and they seem like they're playing a different game entirely, like they know something you don't. Here's the thing, they do. And it's not what you think. Welcome back to Wealth with Frank, where we build real wealth the smart way. I'm your host, Frank. Don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if it helps you. Look, I want to start by challenging something that's been drilled into your head your entire life. You've been told to follow your passion, invest in yourself, and the secret to wealth is earning more money. And while earning matters, here's what most people don't realize. Earning more without a system is like filling a bathtub with the drain open. You can turn the faucet up as high as you want, but if you haven't plugged the drain, it doesn't matter. According to the Federal Reserve's 2023 Survey of Consumer Finances, 44% of Americans would struggle to cover a $400 emergency expense, not because they don't make enough money, but because they have zero margin, zero buffer. They're living at 100% of their income every single month. Now, you might be thinking, Frank, I don't make that much. How am I supposed to save? And I get it, but here's what the data actually shows us. Saving isn't primarily about how much you make, it's about the gap between what you make and what you spend. And that gap is entirely psychological. The psychology here is fascinating. Our brains are wired for short-term survival, not long-term wealth. So when you see something you want, you feel the immediate emotion of desire, but you don't feel the future emotion of regret because it hasn't happened yet. It's abstract. But the purchase, that's concrete. That's now. This is why 70% of lottery winners end up broke within a few years. The behavioral patterns that got them into poverty didn't change just because they had more money. This is where it gets really interesting. Because here's what happens when you do create a margin, when you plug the drain. Let's use actual numbers, because numbers don't lie. Let's say you're 35 and you commit to a 10-year plan. You don't need to be perfect, you just need consistency. Let's say you free up $400 per month. That's roughly what the average American spends on subscription services and impulse purchases. Not a drastic change, just intentional. If you invest that $400 monthly into a diversified index fund, something like the S&P 500, which has averaged 10% annual returns over the past 20 years, here's what happens. After year one, you've contributed $4,800. With returns, you're at roughly $5,200. After year 5, you've contributed $24,000. Your balance? About $32,000. That extra $8,000 isn't from you working harder, it's from your money working. After year 10, you've contributed $48,000, but your balance is approximately $79,000 to $82,000. You literally turned $48,000 into $80,000 by doing nothing but being consistent. Compound interest did the heavy lifting. Albert Einstein allegedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. And once you see this in action, you understand why. But here's the psychological trap. Most people don't stick with this because the first 2 years feel like you're not seeing anything. Your $400 a month just sits there and you don't feel materially different. You don't see the exponential curve kicking in until year 6 or 7. This is why most people quit. They're looking for evidence that it's working, but compound growth is silent until it suddenly isn't. Okay, so here's the actual framework. This is what I recommend for the next decade, and you can start this literally today. Years 1 to 2, foundation, the unglamorous phase. Your job here is simple. Figure out your real number, not what you think you spend. Track everything for 30 days. Food, gas, subscriptions, everything. Most people discover they're spending 20 to 30% more than they think they are. That's your leak. Once you see it, it becomes hard to unsee. Then find $300 to $500 per month. This isn't negotiable. It's not I'll try, it's I will. Cut one subscription. Skip the coffee shop 3 times a week. Pack lunch instead of buying it. The specific how doesn't matter. What matters is you're creating the margin. Open a high-yield savings account, currently earning 4 to 5% if you shop around, and put 3 months of expenses there. That's your psychological safety net. Once it's there, something magical happens. You stop making desperate financial decisions. You don't need to buy that thing you can't afford because you have a cushion. Years 3 to 5, acceleration, the boring phase. Now you've got the habit. You're creating margin consistently, money sitting in your emergency fund so you're not touching the rest.
Here's what you do. Take that $400 to $500 monthly and split it. Half goes to a brokerage account. You're buying index funds. You're not trying to pick individual stocks. You're not trying to be clever. You're buying low-cost, diversified funds and letting compounding do its work. The other half, this is crucial, this goes to learning. Books on finance, a course, a mentor. Because here's what most people don't realize. The highest return you can get on investment is actually on your own knowledge. A $200 course that teaches you to negotiate your salary and you get a 5% raise, that's $3,250 more per year. That's a $1,625% return on $200. Years 6 to 10, wealth building, the exciting phase. By year 6, compound growth is visible. You're not emotionally drained anymore. The habits are autopilot. This is when you can start thinking bigger. Maybe you increase your savings rate to $600 to $700 monthly now that you're more comfortable with the margin. Maybe you've negotiated higher pay or picked up a side skill that generates extra income. That's all accelerating your timeline. You've also learned enough about your finances that you can optimize tax-advantaged accounts, understanding your employer's retirement match. Maybe real estate becomes interesting because you actually understand how leverage works. By year 10, if you've been consistent with that initial $400 to $500 monthly, you're looking at $80,000 to $100,000 in invested assets. You've built the psychological resilience and the knowledge to make better decisions. And most importantly, and this is massive, you've proven to yourself that you can build something. Now you might be thinking, Frank, what if I lose my job? What if the market crashes? These are fair questions, and they're exactly why I mentioned the emergency fund first. That's your parachute. The market will crash. It always does. But here's the thing. If you're investing consistently over 10 years, crashes actually benefit you. You're buying more shares when prices are low. This is called dollar cost averaging, and it's the single most powerful risk reduction strategy that exists. And if you lose your job, you've got 3 months of expenses covered. You're not forced into desperate decisions. You can take your time finding something better instead of just grabbing the first opportunity that comes along. Here's what I want you to understand. Wealth isn't built in a day. It's not built by lottery tickets or get-rich-quick schemes. It's built by consistency, by understanding your numbers, and by letting time do what it does best, compound your advantage. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You just need to be willing to start and disciplined enough to stay consistent. So here's your action. This week, track your spending for 7 days, every penny. Then comment down below with one area where you can create margin. Just one, because that's how this starts. One decision, 1 week, 1 month. And then, before you know it, you're 10 years in and you're building real wealth. If this resonated with you, smash that subscribe button. And if you've been on your own wealth journey, drop a comment. I read them, and I want to hear your story. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.